How we doing, guys? It's RedFellas on a Sunday night again, and as I said last week, it's another therapy session. I'm actually getting sick of that. It's turning into a catchphrase now. So, yep, here we go. Tonight we have the wonderful Jamie, Cav, and Evan on the RedFellas panel. How we doing, guys? How we feeling?
How good can you feel?
Yeah,
we're good. We're good.
Yeah. But as I say, listen, every week we're chatting now, but that's why we're here. Jamie, we've not seen you in a couple of weeks, mate. How's things? How's the US?
Yeah, I was just telling Conroy, absolutely freezing my entire body off yesterday. Got to be -10 where I'm from with wind chill. Felt like -30 Fahrenheit, about 200 miles north of where I'm at in New Hampshire, Mount Washington. Conroy told me that he saw the clip on the internet, but temperatures dropped to -105 degrees Fahrenheit, the coldest ever recorded temperature in the United States. So, you know, Liverpool in the northeast of the United States share some similarities in being quite cold right about now.
Very good. I like that. It's very, very clever. Very clever. Evan, how are you doing today, mate?
Thought I was getting the shit end of the stick with the weather, but hearing Jamie's current situation, I'm over here crying about it raining on and off when I want to go outside and golf. Oh, poor me, you know what I mean? Just things like that. So not by Californian standards, not great weather as well. And of course, when you're a Liverpool fan, it rains and it pours. That's currently what's happening.
Absolutely. I think that's a very, very good analogy. Cav, lastly, how's things been, mate? Have you, obviously we're going to break down the game yesterday, but out with that, I mean, I think I tuned into your friend's stream. Was it the Q&A? Was that Friday night you were on? Was it Endman TV? That was quite interesting as well. So that looked quite fun, to be honest. A bit of a break from Liverpool.
Exactly. Yeah, we're trying. He runs a great channel over there. You guys should check it out. But we're just trying to distract ourselves, I guess, and just try and find fun in other things, because at the minute it's not coming through watching Liverpool, unfortunately. So I'm all right. Weekend was good despite the result. And it's only now that we have to think back and remind ourselves of what's happened. But we're here, we've got to do it, and we will do it.
No, absolutely. And before we get into it, guys, just to get a reminder as well to everyone that RedFellas is sponsored by your FUT card. And I'm just going to share it on the screen here. Usually it doesn't go smoothly, so hopefully it does this time. But yeah, as I say, your FUTcard.com, go there. You've got all your prints, banners, flags, any FUT card there. You've got great selections there. Head on over to here. It's very, very good. I would say there's maybe examples of what we could do with Liverpool results recently. Probably not. But again, if you're a football fan, Harry Kane scoring the winner today, getting, what was it, guys? Was that his 267th goal for Spurs? Is that correct?
Some mad number like that.
Yeah. So obviously that's quite a groundbreaking moment for him, to be fair. I think he's the only footballer now who's got 200 Premier League goals. I think over with Rooney and Alan Shearer now. So credit to him. But again, you've got all your custom flag creator, all your stuff on your FUTcard.com. Brilliant sponsor, brilliant channel, brilliant website. And you've also got, if you need any help, you just go onto the chat with us. If you're like me and you need a bit of a how-to perform it, go there, ask them any questions and they'll help you out. And yeah, absolutely brilliant. And also as well, to everyone on that, we've also got, we usually have the discount at the bottom of the screen, but we've had a few technical issues today with regard to that. But it's still, if you type in, it's RedFellas, I'll confirm that before the show, RedFellas, and into the discount code, and you get 15% off. So if Cav can maybe check that in the background, exactly the code, because I've having a little bit of an issue with the banner at the moment, but I say you've got a discount there. So head on over there if you've got any flags, banners, FUT cards. A personal favourite of mine would be Messi this season. Again, he scored last night. He's got 10 assists and 10 goals in Liga. So I'm sure his FUT card will be very, very high right now. So yeah, got a discount there. Go and check it out. But yeah, that was the nice part of the show. Now we actually have to get into the reality, as I would say. And yeah, it feels like we've played Wolves. Obviously, I was at the third time in a couple of weeks, or maybe even less than that, 2 weeks now, guys. But yesterday, 3 o'clock kickoff. and we'll get into it. So the lineups, Jamie, I'll start with you since we've not seen you for a few weeks. The lineups come out. What was your thought on that? And before that as well, Jamie, what was your thought on the game in general going into the game? Were you confident? Were you feeling nervous, or a bit of despair, a bit of numbness, like the two guys below we've been talking about the past couple of weeks?
When the lineups had come out, I think the most intriguing decision was in the midfield with Naby Keita and Stefan Bajcetic starting. I had no qualms with that midfield because I don't necessarily think there are other midfielders at the club who could stake a claim for being better than those options for this match day. I was excited to see the way the pictures came in on NBC and USA, that they had Gakpo on the left and Darwin in the middle. Obviously, Ibu Konate not featuring, which means we go with Gomez and Matip. And, now I'm going to really start to get into it because I will just exploit myself for being stupid. But I saw Robbo in the tunnel and I took a GIF of his facial expression. I thought he looked ready. And I put it up and I said on Twitter, Robbo's ready. We're getting the dub today. And how stupid could I have been? How scripted could it have been from the start with this team? And I was just sat there thinking, because I hate to leave the lineups, and I know that's the question that you asked me, but it's happening so quickly now with Liverpool that we're absolutely imploding defensively. I mean, when we talk about shape, after 5 minutes, I'm going to show you guys something here, right? Look at my two front teeth right here, right? The gap that's there between the center backs, and I'm not taking the piss. And it's at that level where I'll just come out and say I feel like a fool watching this team, thinking about years prior when we could shake off bad results 3, 4, 5, and then come out on a run. It's absolutely non-existent now. And I mean, yeah, I concede my time because I could ramble on about my emotions bubbling up right now. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, fair enough, Jamie. And I think that's a very fair point. And yeah, I like that analogy as well. Just before we crack on as well, I've just got a few super chats. Just quickly on this one, see if this comes up now. HKM Music, thanks for the super chat, mate. He says, where is Grizz hiding? He's going to catch the smoke. Grizz actually can't make it. It's not because of the result, because let's be honest, Grizz has been on a few RedFellas and after-match reactions, and he done the calling yesterday. But he's actually got a prior engagement tonight, so I'm sure you'll have plenty of opportunity to see him this week, believe me. And just, HKN Music again, thanks again for the $5 super chat. I ain't never seen a drop-off like this. Liverpool tears, I love it. Go United. Listen, fair enough, honestly. And
last time I saw a drop-off like this, Conroy, was the last decade of Manchester United. That's the last time I saw a drop-off like this. That's crazy.
And do you know what? I think that's a very good point, Evan. But, we can do it better, though. We can do it quicker.
Oh, yeah. It can be much more painful. There you go.
Yeah. No, it's genuinely, I know we joke, but it's getting to the point now. We're going to break it down, but it's getting to the point now where it is actually, I don't even know the words. I'm lost for words. The numbness, I say it every week, but yesterday, guys, as soon as I was 5 minutes late to the kickoff and it was already 1-0. As soon as I managed to check the score, it was 1-0. And I was like, you know how you get that kind of anxious feeling? It's kind of gone now. It's more a kind of you're obviously annoyed, but it's just, for me, it's numbness at this point. But
yeah,
I don't know if you guys feel the same now.
It's acceptance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can talk about confidence, that if you want, but honestly, sometimes, right, it just comes down to basics of football and why you should have better players and be able to show why you've got better players and be more intelligent, and just not seeing that. But on the lineups, Cav, as Jamie just made this point, how was your thoughts towards the lineups with yesterday's game?
It was expected. No real surprises in there. I think there's a lot of guys that kind of pick themselves based on form, dare I say it. But I mean, even form isn't particularly great. And then injuries. So the only real question mark was maybe who he goes with at centre-back position. Now, obviously, We lost Khanage earlier in the week, and we know he's out with a hamstring issue. And it was whether he was going to put Joel in or Nat. And for me, I always knew Joel was going back in there. I know he's not played well of late, but he is above Nat in the pecking order, obviously. I would have preferred to have seen Nat, though, I'd be honest. And the reason I say that is because with Nat Phillips, you know what you're getting. He's just a guy that's aggressive into every challenge, doesn't second guess himself, just goes in there, wins a header, wins a tackle, clears his lines, doesn't try and do anything fancy. And when you have a player like that, the people around him can sort of fall into place and react to a player like that. So Gomez can go sort of fill in behind him or cover him, stepping out and things like that. And then I also thought that with the partnership, as it turns out, between Matip and Joe Gomez, there's a lot of sort of hesitancy in it. There's a lot of sort of indecisiveness. They've not played together a whole lot, but none of them are really that guy that steps out and takes ownership of the situation. They both try and read the game. And that can be quite dangerous when you haven't got a partnership that's been worked on for a while, because you're second guessing what your partner's going to do. And you're not sure which one should engage and which one should cover. So I wasn't best pleased to see Matip in there for that reason. But I understood it because we all know what the ranking system is now of our centre-backs. I suppose the only other one you could maybe question is whether he'd make a change in midfield, just purely for freshening it up. Maybe bring Henderson back in for Naby or something like that. But it was understandable why he would go with the midfield three that's seemingly been a bit better, had a bit more control in games than what we've seen this season. And the final point I'll just make is I like the front three that we went with, because I think if we're going to get any success this season, it's going to be out of them three guys. Obviously with Jota and Diaz out. And I think that they need to work together. They need to play together to build this kind of rhythm and chemistry. I was just intrigued to see whether he would persist with having Gakpo up front and Nunes on the left. And I'm pleased that wasn't the case. Because Nunes come on for a few minutes in the last game and went on the left, and Cody Gakpo stayed up front. And I was like, yeah, this doesn't quite make sense. One's been playing up front all his life, and one's been playing off the left most of his career. And you've just seen he's switched them around for God knows what reason. So I was pleased that they got that right at least. But yeah, lineup wise, wasn't expected, but I was still concerned because I know we were up against Wolves, and Wolves have got both physicality, energy, and technical ability. So I was concerned all over the park, to be totally honest with you, not just the midfield this game.
And I think that's fair enough. I actually think that point about the Nat Phillips one, I think that question probably may get raised going forward. And I know we're going to break down the game, but I will like to just quickly, before I want to get Evan's take on it as well, but for me, it's like, when you said you know what you're getting with Nat Phillips, I feel like at times it's like sometimes when we're not playing as high a line, or when it is a case of just defenders just defending their area, you know Nat Phillips can do a job in that. And you've seen it, especially in that run when we got managed to somehow get third place. We did simplify back to the basics. And for me, I think that could be a shout going forward, because to be honest, the moment you've seen Nat Phillips defend without a Virgil van Dijk. You've seen him consistently defend well in that season. I'm not saying he's great, but he can do a job. After yesterday, I know Carragher said it did emphasise more that it's like when they've not got Van Dijk next to them, Joe Matip and Gomez, are they that guy? Can they lead that defence? I don't know. Maybe that's been reactionary from me. Evan, what's your thoughts on that? Just that's it, and the team as well, but just the centre back partnership as well.
Well, the centre back partnership that started the game, it's wildly disappointing, because if we're looking for solidity, if we're looking for leaders, if we're looking for something close to the standards that we've come to expect from this team, I would expect it from a guy like Joel Matip, to a lesser extent Joe Gomez, but both Matip and Gomez are players that have played 30 plus games in seasons where we were a top 3 defense in the world. And I know they obviously have the very important, effect that Virgil van Dijk has on defenses and all that stuff. But at the same time, I expect them, even without the presence of Virgil, even without the presence of a established, experienced holding midfielder in front of them, I would expect them not to shit the bed so dramatically as they did in the first half. And I know we'll talk about the game event by event. But just on paper, if I was looking for some sort of comfort in that team, I found some in a center back partnership that should be doing better. And I know both Matip and Gomez have had seasons of indifference. They've been in and out of form, mostly out of form. But if I'm looking places, you know, in the starting 11 for teams to reestablish themselves, or players to reestablish themselves rather, I expect that from some of the more experienced center back options that we have. I don't, even with all of our numerous tactical woes and injury woes and confidence, whatever the myriad of issues that we currently have, whatever you want to attribute it to, I would come to expect more from that center back partnership. And for me, it's quite telling that the only player in that starting 11 as well that's getting in just based on form because they are playing well is Stefan Bajcetic. And as happy as I am that he's looking so talented and so promising, and he got a new contract, all great, all very good, feel good factors. The fact that he is the only person in that starting 11 starting based on merit rather than the fact that he's not injured is pathetic, if I'm being quite honest. And I'm running out of words for it. So
yeah, I think that's absolutely, honestly, I'd agree with that, Evan. And sometimes it's like, it's very hard not to be sympathetic towards him as well, because he's actually, doing a decent job. I think he's playing quite well considering the circumstances, especially. And it's like you actually feel that, do you know what? Even if we're battling for the top four, like maybe fifth, sixth, if we're still getting results in between the poor performances, or like there was a bit of positivity, you'd feel like he'd be loving every game. And I'm sure he probably is to a certain extent, but it's definitely harder when it's like the team, some of the so-called senior players who usually you could depend on for at least putting a 7 out of 10 performance, is just not there. So it makes it a lot more difficult. But fair play to him. I think that in that situation you can sink or swim. And Bajcetic, I've been very impressed, and I actually feel like it's one of them. It's like you can see the potential, but if this is what he's doing at this age, and let's be honest as well, it's not all about being a big guy. I don't agree with that in midfield, but like he's probably going to fill out a bit more as well. And or at least I don't necessarily feel it, but his body will change slightly because he'll be more of he will develop slightly, and that I think that'll help him.
If you go back and look at highlights of Trent from like 2018 or 2017 to 2019, he just looks like a child. And then you look at him now, he's like sculpted, he's got big shoulders, he's got bigger muscles. Like it's a night and day difference being 18 and being 22, I feel like. And one more thing on the inclusion of Bajcetic and his merit of being the only person starting because of it. It's a bad look for the club that we didn't strengthen in that position better over the summer, because if the main critiques are the midfield is fatigued, the midfield is injury prone, the midfield doesn't have enough profiles, the midfield has too many of this type of profile, it's a really bad look that the only player in the midfield that is actually like a new signing, because he quite literally didn't play for us really last season. It's a bad look that he, at 18, with all of his inexperience and all of his room to grow, is right now our most on-form player.
Yeah, no, I think honestly, you've summed it up perfectly, Evan. That's what I was thinking a lot recently. It's a strange one because it kind of does put his stock up slightly as well, which is good for him, obviously getting a contract and stuff. And I'm not saying he's going to be and then necessarily buzzing with each game, but I'm sure from his individual goals and targets, he'll be pretty. Could be good for he could maintain a very solid career from this, which fair play to him. So we'll get into the game then, guys. We spoke about the lineup, so here we go. So we'll start the game, and to be honest, I was going to, we usually break down moments, chances, but we can't even do it in this one, to be honest, because literally it's Wolves score that early. The first goal, it's Hwang. I'll let Jamie take it. Sorry, but it's Hwang. I think plays a great ball over the top, and I'll let you take it from there, Jamie, for Wolves' first goal.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those things that where we're being critical of Liverpool, I feel, is mostly related to things, like we said, that should be basic, where in terms of communication on the ball over, Joe Gomez and Joel Matip both have no idea what the other one is doing. And so the result is that both hesitate. And then I forget who it was who crossed in the ball and it ended up going off of Joel Matip's leg. But when you have two center backs who are hesitant, it gives the opposition time. And time with anything inside the box is so dangerous. And we've seen this time and time again. And it even goes to the second goal, where the lack of fluidity in terms of our formation and the way that we're keeping ourselves is leaving us so open that it's entirely comical, where, okay, if Evan and I are center backs, right, and we see the ball go over and Evan is closer to the man and I have the diagonal run, I'll go in and then Evan would go behind me. However, both of Joel and Joe are slow to react, and it's the situation of the latter of which I'm describing, where Joel has to go. And he's so late to the point where his legs are open and, you know, he's Kevin De Bruyne's favorite target in the world. It ricochets off him and we're down in the dumps within 6 minutes, I believe. And it's one of those things, again, where I'm so mad at myself that I couldn't believe what I was seeing again. But the tenacious Liverpool, the on the front foot, the confident Liverpool, the knowing exactly where everyone is supposed to be in the system Liverpool is gone. That is not here right now. And as a result, we give up goals that look like under 9s, under 10s, comical errors. And from that point going forward, you knew we're up against it again.
Sorry, guys, there's a mute there. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the chat as well are saying, you know, don't want to really hear any Wolves praise for this goal. It's a good ball over the top, but ultimately there's so many mistakes defensively. Say Matip not tracking his run, as you said, Jamie. The what is the understanding between the centre backs? Yeah, it is quite comical, to be honest. And then what is it they say as well? It's like if you kind of put yourself in a bad position and the way your luck's going, that can happen as well. It can hit off you and go in. If that was just an isolated event, you can probably live with that. But let's be honest, we've had more than enough examples recently where it's not just been one mistake that's caused the goal. There's been several errors leading to that moment. So, yeah, do you guys? I saw a few people saying on yesterday after the game, just for everyone. I'll stick with Jamie because we'll move on to the next goal. The next goal straight after. Jamie, do you think Trent could have done anything better there? I didn't think personally, but I saw a few people say that yesterday in the chat as well. Do you think Trent could have done more?
In my opinion, no. I think it's a structural collapse, with the main pieces of the structural collapse being the two center backs. Because if hypothetically the situation that I described, where then Joe is tracking fast enough and it's not a reactionary track, it's on the front foot, I know what's happening in this play. I trust that because I know the ball has gone over me, Joel will be there. I'll drop into the space. That's clearly not happened because they've reacted so slowly. And at that point, the ball is in the net. I think it's a courtesy dive from Alisson, structural collapse. I don't think you can put that on Trent solely.
We're talking about the first goal here, right?
Yeah, first goal, yeah.
And Trent's playing it right back. Matip's playing left center back, and he just lets the ball go by him.
I think Joe was in front of Matip, actually. I think Joe Gomez was in front of Matip.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I'm just saying, if Matip's at left center back and he doesn't deal with something, then I don't understand how people could make that about Trent. I don't get. Like when you raised the point, Conrad, I couldn't even remember where Trent was for that goal.
No, I think Trent was. I think he was coming in. So when he plays the ball across, he's at see where the post is, the far post. He's there. So obviously it kind of slides across, hits the post, and comes back across to Alisson. Listen, I agree. I didn't think it was Trent's fault at all. But people were saying that he could have maybe done better there. possibly got across quicker. But again, you're trying to judge where it's going to go, and I think in times in football you can't do that. So I didn't think it was Trent's fault. I just sometimes think people are looking to blame him.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Matip does a late offside trap by himself. And don't get me wrong, it's a good run, but I'm not going to say that it's a good ball. It's a nothing ball if Matip does the basics of what he's supposed to do. But he sort of just like lets it go by him and he lets it bounce. So yeah, I agree with the people here in the chat that say don't give Wolves too much praise. Don't get me wrong, I don't think they played badly, but we've played them twice recently and they're shit, just like us. So I really don't want to hear too much praise. As far as I'm concerned, we shot ourselves twice in the foot inside 10 minutes. Yeah,
and I think as we continue to talk about it, Evan, we'll do that. And actually, Evan, since we just spoke there to yourself, and I know you've got to leave a bit earlier, we might as well rip the Band-Aid off. And before we do that, anyone else got anything to add to that goal? I think, Cav, yourself, I think we summarised it quite well. Just as Evan said, just shit, to be honest.
It's a good summary of the goal. I don't think Trent could have done anything. I think the trouble is with Trent is we've seen so often this season this lapsy-daisical, lazy approach that when he's in proximity to the ball going sort of towards the goal, everyone's thinking he should get there. I think it's quite difficult for him, be it his facing his own goal, to actually manage to get that one out. It's a tough one because it looks like he's just watching it roll in. But if you watch it in real time at real speed, I'm not sure how quickly he can react or even do anything. But be it it's Trent, be it we've seen this lazy attitude before, it's a bit like not the agenda, but that thought of him already carries through, whether he should be blamed or not. I didn't quite like the body language after. I've got to be honest. They after the goal went in, they kind of stayed on Trent for a little minute. And he just like looked blank, and it was almost as if like, oh, we've conceded again. We're used to this now. There wasn't a real anger or a frustration, and that I think that just basically tells you that this team are so used to conceding a goal and so used to going a goal down. They're just like, oh, it's happened again. Okay, let's see what happens now. As opposed to being frustrated, you should, as a defender. And I know Trent's an attacking defender, but as a defender and as a team that's been conceding a goal first so often, you should be fuming you've conceded that goal so early on or conceded at all. And I didn't really see that in the body language from the players, which was quite frustrating. And to be honest, that attitude is probably part of the reason why we went on to concede so shortly after, which I'll let Evan chop up.
Yeah, and KD agrees as well. Most of the players look blank and have zero desire lately. It's concerning. I think we unanimously agree with that, and I think that sums up the point as well. It's it used to be. I remember the phrase. Now listen, sometimes we go over gas certain moments, but it used to be like I think Van Dijk came out and said we love clean sheets, and I'm not saying we could continue to be this absolute outstanding defensive team, but you want to carry a bit of pride in your defending. So when you do concede that, it is like, it's like it means a lot. And I don't know, maybe it's that overriding feeling of acceptance that we're having, the players are having it, and I've got to be honest, guys, that's very concerning. That is very, very concerning. But on that as well, just a quick one before we move on, because the chat have said it and I meant to raise this point as well. Obviously Gomez, we mentioned both of them, but he goes out and he's running back to catch that runner. I think you mentioned that as well, Jamie. And it's like, to me, it's like that can happen in games, but it's like when you're trying to do that, it's like I may be wrong because it may have just been at the moment in time as you talk about that pass, Evan. But to me, it felt like not that there wasn't urgency, but it was like it felt far relaxed in that situation. As soon as he's out of position, he's got to be like a steam train getting back, because that is like you've got a professional player, I think Hwang there, who can find the pass. Like it's not a difficult pass, as Evan says. Like the ball's on, it's a nothing ball, but you can put it into that area. And to me, it didn't feel like we'd had this arousing, chat before in the change rooms to say we cannot concede. And again, that maybe falls into the acceptance of we're going to concede goals. That I may be just talking about that the wrong way, but to me that's what it felt like. But sorry, Evan, the next goal, I'll let you take this one, mate. Dawson's second goal just shortly after the first.
Well, if the first goal, which I consider 99% Joel Matip's own doing, if the first goal is one of our defenders being guilty of a non-committal action, not committing enough, not dealing with something that is, by all means, in my opinion, a nothing ball. Then the second goal we concede is, I think, a bigger example of an overcommitting sort of antsy rush of blood to the head action, because the cross that's coming in is an in-swinging ball. There's no Wolves player relatively close to Gomez or Allison who could easily deal with the ball, but Gomez sort of heads the cross back into a dangerous position. So it's a cross that I'm pretty sure Allison is going to take comfortably, or Allison is at the very least going to punch comfortably. There's nobody really in the vicinity, and Gomez just heads it back in to a dangerous area. And so you have both sides of the coin, right? You have a nervousness and a lack of confidence, creating a non-committing action from Matip, and then you have an over-committing sort of nervousness creeping in from Gomez. And this is why it's so disappointing, because these, regardless of the presence of Van Dijk, regardless of the presence of an out-and-out established holding midfield in front of them, these are situations that have to be dealt with. I would expect center backs far below the caliber of Gomez and Joel Matip to deal with these situations. These are rookie mistakes. These are the basics of defending. And how, so much has been said about, Klopp's pragmatism and why hasn't there been more drastic tactical changes to deal with our form. And these are valid points, and I wouldn't disagree. But how are you supposed to coach that to not happen? Because these are individual moments from individual players not doing the basics of defending, things they teach you at under 12, under 10 level. I tweeted this out earlier this morning because I just woke up and it occurred to me, Liverpool, we could be just as shit as we are now, but easily a dozen points better off in the Premier League table if we could just manage not to concede first constantly inside 15 minutes, because we have so many issues, and people will point out the issues, and I disagree with none of them. All of these concerns are valid, but if you constantly flip the game script against yourself inside 10 to 15 minutes, that's going to skew results more than any other notable issue. How demoralizing is it from a coaching perspective, from the player's perspective, to work on tactics, to work on reestablishing the press, to work on all these things, and then these moments that you can't coach for, you can't account for, you just shoot yourself in the foot. Like, there shouldn't have to be coaching to teach Matip and Gomez not to do that. You know what I mean? You can't focus on that because it's not important enough to focus on. So, although I totally agree that coaches and players and everybody and owners and everybody has to take a certain amount of responsibility for our shortcomings this season, what are you supposed to do coaching tactically wise if you're down 2-0 inside 10-15 minutes from nothing situations? That's a nothing cross, that's a nothing ball over the top, but we have turned it into a dangerous situation just by the individual play of two different players. And I'm not trying to create a pile-on culture. I'm not trying to create a Gomez out or a Matip out culture. I'm just trying to point out we are going to continue to skew results against ourselves and give ourselves no chance of regaining momentum, no chance of regaining confidence if individual moments like create a situation where essentially we're in the hole before the game even really starts. And so I mean, we've scored first 12 times this season across all comps. We won 11 of those games, something like that. The stat is something in and around that, give or take 2 points or so. And so that's all I'll really say about our disastrous opening and the errors that contributed to it.
Absolutely, Evan. I think, WYS also says the momentum against us for 80 minutes of every game. And I think that's a really good point for this game, especially. Momentum is huge in football. I've said that numerous times. All the guys here have said that as well. If you're consistently doing it, maybe Spurs this season, they've went 2-0 down a few times, and they've been able to pull it back. But not every game as well. It's like, you can't continue to do that. You have to give yourself a chance. And it goes back to that point about just doing the basics correctly. And Evan, I think you're spot on your analysis of that, to be honest, because it's like, for me, it's like, if I'm watching like the Spurs game today against Man City, and Man City, both teams, but specifically Man City, have about, I don't know, let's say 10 to 15, maybe 10 opportunities to cross a ball in the box. It's either blocked or, it's headed out. Basic defending for Premier League defenders. I think we'd all agree with that. But it just seems to be us. And there definitely is a feeling that sometimes I feel like, do we actually, we play a high line a lot, and we've always played a high line, but now we're having to defend. Now, this is what proper defenders do. If you play like in other leagues low down, you don't have a glamorous high line where you can always do that. You have to defend. And yesterday, that goal was, I'm not meant to speak too much on it. I'll let you guys comment, but what is Gomez thinking? Firstly, I can't confirm if Alisson shouted. He probably should, like a keeper. If he has, it's even worse. But Joe Gomez has got to head it out for a corner. Like he's literally heading it into the danger area. Like, this is
exactly. It's basic rudimentary stuff. Alisson can be a fucking scarecrow for all it matters. It doesn't matter if he says anything or not. There's absolutely no situation. I'm not saying that you're insinuating Alisson should say something.
No, but what I'm saying,
but yeah.
The worst case scenario could be a corner. Do you know what I mean? That should be like Alisson turns it. I shouted, but you deal with it. You get on. That's literally what every other team in the league would do. The worst case scenario is we gave a corner away. Okay, it's annoying. We'll communicate better. Move on. You don't give Craig Dawson a free shot at target in the center of the box. It's just
you can't do it. And here's the thing, Conroy. I generally think analysis or punditry where people say, oh, that's under 12 level stuff. They teach you how to do that when you're 10 years old. I generally think punditry like that is bitter and lazy and just like low effort. But I'm doing it today because I literally have no other explanation. I need to establish, I think it's usually cringy to say things like that. But today I will say it. Today I will say that if I did those things on my high school team, we would be running laps afterwards. We would be running sprints afterwards. There would be some form of punishment for doing those things because it's unacceptable at every single level. And how are you supposed to fight back? Somebody left a comment recently. How often this season have we spent 80 of the 90 minutes fighting uphill? It's so much more hurtful than where we were in the COVID season in 1920 when we had all of our center backs missing. We controlled games from start to finish in those seasons. We just couldn't punch through. We sort of just like lost our ability to punch through at any time. This is so much different. This is a level of fragility that exists anywhere and everywhere all the time. And how are you supposed to coach it? I get how you can go into the transfer window and address it. I'm not saying that that's not possible. But how are you supposed to coach it outside of the transfer window? It baffles me.
Yeah, and also just to add as well, the comments are saying absolutely Keita, Robbo, stop the cross. I said that with the Man City analogy just earlier. I agree. There's multiple factors as well, but I think we're talking about the Gomez one because it is that. It's the final moment that puts yourself in a very dangerous situation. And guys, watch the Premier League this weekend. I don't think I've seen a goal like that. I don't think you'll see many teams like that. That's why it's difficult, because it's like, so we've got great crossers, or like Trent, for example, we talk about spamming crosses, but there's a reason we don't score a lot of goals that way all the time, because one, okay, you maybe talk about you can have like a Haaland and it works, but secondly as well, it's like because defenders in this league are very good at defending those type of crosses, except for us, because that we make simple aspects of football difficult, and again that really really is baffling. And I think Evan, you summed it up really well, and to me it's like it's Grizz, Cav, we spoke about this lots of times. Liverpool, and Evan as well. Sorry, Evan, you actually the first one to say this, so I'll actually give you your credit here. Liverpool are not the worst team in the league, but they are by far the easiest team to play against. And I think this game is the mantelpiece version of this is how easy we are to play against a team who was in relegation before the game, guys? Was it third bottom or just above it?
Yeah, a team that has barely scored. And Conroy, to add more context to that tweet that I constantly reference, I tweeted in August. I tweeted that with the underlying insinuation being Liverpool have not evolved enough tactically. It was an extension of what Ancelotti said about us after the Champions League final last season, where he said, Liverpool are very predictable. They play the same way every single time. So when I tweeted that, I meant that we were the easiest team to play against because our tactics have gone somewhat stale. Now that tweet has taken on an entirely new, different life because we are the easiest team to play against because we shoot ourselves in the foot willingly, constantly, inside 10 minutes, most game weeks. So now the tweet has sort of grown a second head.
Yeah,
it's the two-headed monster. Yeah, it can mean any of one thing at any given time. So that's the unfortunate story behind it.
Yeah, and we constantly refer to it now, Evan. I'm sorry about that, but it's actually the easiest. It's one of the best ways to explain how we're feeling now, to be honest. But Cav, what I give the just after half time, what happens. We go 2-0 down, and I want to kind of speak to yourself about the reaction. We can probably write off the rest of the first half. Off the top of my head, there wasn't many chances. I don't know if there's anything you want guys to mention there.
Well, there was a chance for us, a big chance actually for Darwin Núñez, where he's played through. And
was that first half? Sorry, apologies.
Yeah, that's on the 14th minute, so it's almost straight after we conceded the goal. He's played through.
Oh, you're talking about the other chance. Sorry.
Yeah, I raised it now.
That one. Yeah, I was thinking. I'm sorry.
In a bit. He's played through. He's in between the fullback and the defender. He lets the ball roll across him, and he tries to curl it into the top corner. All sounds great, right? Or not when you realise that Mo Salah's stood to his right, and it's a simple pass across and a tap in.
Saw that.
And kind of sums Núñez up a little bit, really. Shot wasn't particularly great. At least he got it on target this time. But plays with his head down. He's just so focused and so rash in front of goal. He's just so concentrating on hitting the target that actually he's not got that game awareness and vision around him. And
Kev, can I ask you real quick just to go back to the point? Do you think that I think it's valid that you bring it up, but do you think it's so unfortunate that we have to bring up these little situations where our attackers could have done differently with a half chance or an opening, because we exacerbate these chances so much? Every single chance or half chance is under so much scrutiny given the game script that we give to ourselves. I think in a perfectly normal Liverpool universe, a situation where a player maybe should have shot instead of passed, or passed instead of shot. Normally it's just like whatever, you know what I mean? It's it's a half chance that we didn't maximize, but because we're in this situation, it's so unfortunate that we've created this culture for Darwin Núñez, even though he carries some responsibility as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, you're dead right. And look, he is relatively new to the team. He's still finding his feet. Same goes for Gakpo. So look, I'm sure they would want to be doing better with their output and their finishing and things. But the truth is, goals change games. And look, if we didn't make them silly errors to go 2 goals down so early, I reckon we'd have maybe had a chance in this game. Because we did. I know people don't want to hear it, but there was slight signs of improvement in that sort of Brighton game, the following time round, and things like this. But you've got to take your chances. And if Núñez had scored that'd have been 2-1 and only 15 minutes gone. Suddenly then, okay, it's not ideal, but you're actually the team with the momentum a little bit now because you've just scored the last goal and there's a little bit of fight back. But when you constantly miss these chances, you miss the opportunities to build into the game and to get momentum and a bit of feel-good factor and a bit of confidence. And then obviously missing it has a completely negative effect. You just go, oh boy, are we going to get another chance to actually score? So, like I say, you've got to take these chances. It shouldn't be the case that we're not creating enough for our strikers. And they should be in a situation by where if they miss one, they go, okay, but I'm confident the next one's going to come and I'll make sure I take that. They're actually playing knowing that they're not going to get too many chances in this game. And there's so much pressure on them to finish their food. And at the minute, they're not. And as I say, it was just frustrating because Salah was right there. It's a simple squared pass. I'm not sure if Salah gave him a shout, but had he, it was a simple tap in. And would have been back into the game, regardless of how well you think we were playing, regardless of how well, if you think we would have gone on to get a result or what have you, being a goal down with, 65, 70 minutes remaining of the game, you're still in with a chance. Being 2-0 down and the clock ticking, it gets harder and harder. So I just thought I'd raise that point because the remainder of the half, because we'll come on to the second half, but I thought the remainder of that first half, you could tell Wolves had 2 goals. You could tell they just played with the confidence then. They were popping it around. They were moving. They were avoiding the press and the challenges. And they played like a team that then had that confidence of having a 2-goal lead. And we really struggled, I thought, from that point on. We go in at halftime 2 down. And I let the guys take it. But I thought there was a bit of a reaction when we come back out.
Can I just on that, Cav, smash the likes, folks, as well, please. Come on, even if you're here to here to see the tears or to discuss or debrief, have a therapy session, just please smash the likes. It helps the channel. Cav, on that, what I wanted to mention there as well. See, when you're 2-0 down, this is elite sport, right? So see this type of idea of a percentage shot, if you know what I mean, and that's been a bit harsh. I'm not saying it is that when Nunez is shot, but in those moments when you're on a rescue mission, you need to be clutch. If you want to be clutch, you step up, you make the right decision, and you do that. Don't get me wrong, I actually think it's a good effort, that one, but it's like the right passes across the Salah because you've got more chance of scoring that way. But certain players, listen, I could say we could discuss football all day. There's certain footballers who are footballers, but they don't think in that way. They've got where they've got because they play in a certain way, and you might change some. But I'll be honest, a lot still playing top teams think like that. And I feel like that's where you separate the good footballers for the great, I would say. Who, you mentioned being clinical and stuff. Sometimes it's just about decision-making in moments. And again, that's an example where we're going to speak about the other chance, but you lose confidence. You lose confidence in certain players because running with your head down, and I don't want to bring the price tag into it, and I still think I've said he will be effective, and he definitely will. But yeah, it's he's going to continue to be frustrating because that's what he is. He's that's the type of player he is, and he'll look at himself as I've got here because of doing that. So I can't see that changing anytime soon. But on the patterns of play, Cav, I wanted to talk to you specifically before we move on. And I know Evan needs to leave soon, so we'll give Evan the start of the second half. Regarding how Wolves were playing, how long's Lopetegui been there? What, maybe 2 months if you're lucky? And I've seen them play 4 different formations now. I've seen Alt-Nouri look like outstanding. Genuinely, Grizz actually said this last year as well, to be fair. But he could genuinely be, I think he's got a very high ceiling. I think he's a very clever footballer. I think he's very cultured for a left-back as well. And I think he kind of goes under the radar. I think he's been very good. But the patterns of play, especially with their midfield and their wide and attackers' movement, like, it actually made me jealous. I'm going to be honest, guys. I know you're 2-0 up, and I get that, but I've seen teams who go 2-0 up who still just play the balls down the wide areas, try to find weaknesses. They were actually popping it about. And Lopetegui's been there for 2 months, possibly, and he's managed to get that, the confidence in those players and that the intelligence on the part to try that, the rotations, the tactical, aiming for the weaknesses, as we mentioned, Cav, previously, identifying our team's weaknesses and really going at that. I've got to be honest, it made me feel quite jealous, to be honest. I felt that a few times this season because I'm seeing other teams work a game plan, carry it out, and actually show you what they've been working on in training and what they're trying to do. I don't know if you guys felt the same way. I just wanted to ask that before we move on to second half.
Yeah, well, you say you're jealous of Wolves. I mean, we're just about jealous of everybody at the moment in time. But the one that got me, I messaged you, Conroy, when the game was happening.
I know.
it was the Everton Arsenal game. I said, how am I sitting here seeing Everton managing to defend their box, be compact, high energy, and create chances against the team that's flying top of the league? And Dicey's been in less than a week. Do you know, I know I get new manager bounce and this and that, but if you've watched Sean Dyche explain his defending the box in front of the goal, this V defensive style that he has and stuff like that, I'm just like, it's so doable. Like, it's so doable. We had 7 days between games to just work on something and tweak things just to make you so much more compact and so much better defensively. And then you can build on that and create a style going forward. And we're just not seeing it. we're just not seeing it at all. And it's just like, yet again, another game, same tactics, same style. And it's just freestyle tactics. It's just like, oh, we'll play people if they've played well, bar one, and we'll come on to them later maybe. And we'll just see what happens. Just no real direction, no real intent in the game. Just go out there, try do what we've been doing for the past few years and see what happens. And you're dead right. Then nothing happens. There's no pattern of play. There's no build up. There's no swing in the game where we're trying to mix things up, or someone's shifted to another spot, or we're trying to target a particular area or channel, or maybe switch from doing underlaps to overlaps, or maybe just go route one and have someone run off Nunes. You don't see anything. You just see pass, and wait for the opposition to maybe make a mistake or capitalize on a misplaced pass or something.
Or like an individual moment of brilliance. Did we not say this about Manchester United a couple of years ago? It was freestyle football. And like, to be honest, I'd take that right now, because even individual moments really aren't stepping up and changing much. But absolutely, Cav. Ev, I know you need to go soon, mate, so I'll let you take the start to the second half. And what was your thoughts on that? How do you think we played at that moment?
You did see something different in the second half. Liverpool, for the first 10 to 20 minutes of it, were penning Wolves in, just constantly under siege, moving the ball around pretty well. Eventually an excellent pass from Trent Alexander-Arnold puts Nunez away. I'm not sure if that's immediately after the half. I don't quite remember. It was very early for me and I was half asleep. But obviously Nunez does not convert. Not great for the program. But you did see a reaction, which makes me think that although I have plenty of time to critique decisions that Klopp and the coaching staff have made this season, I have more than enough time for that. I do think you could see there's still capability of changing and like making little tweaks here and there, and basically at the very least eliciting a reaction out of the players, tactically, emotionally, whatever it is. You could see he's capable of doing it. We just do not convert any of the openings that we create for ourselves. And eventually we are punished. But I did see a reaction there, and every once in a while it's so frustrating, and it contributes to the frustration, even though it's inherently a good thing. But in this poor run of form, you'll have 5 to 10 minutes where Liverpool are like recognizable again. You know what I mean? Like Trent and Salah will exchange well on the wing once or twice and get themselves in good positions to pass or cross. Then I'm like, oh, that's kind of what I remember. Every once in a while, someone will do something, a little passage of play, and it'll trigger something deep in my brain to a place in the past where I was much happier. But again, it's just so few and far between. And again, I think it circles back to the game script thing, because I think such moments would be more sustainable and more common if you're not in the hole, if you're not coming out of the tunnel thinking, if we're going to win this game, we have to score 3 times in 45 minutes and not concede at all, whilst committing more men forward and committing a greater tempo and leaving ourselves even more exposed than we were at the start of the game. So that for me is the most frustrating, because I would much rather us just be drawing a ton of games 0-0. You know what I mean? Like, we're defending well, we're not committing self-sabotage, and we're coming out at the second half with the game in the balance, as opposed to us being in the hole. So that, plus the signs of us actually looking like ourselves, albeit briefly, very briefly, in no way enough, that for me is extremely frustrating. It just contributes to a feeling of toxicity. And I like to share a personal story about the game, just so everybody knows how I'm faring mentally. Yesterday was the first time I can remember turning a Liverpool game off before the 90 minutes were up. We are the first team to give Ruben Neves a goal from inside the penalty area, which is a crazy thing to think about. It was just too much for me, and it's a new low for me in the Klopp era. I'm sure I did it a few times 15, 20 years ago, but it's the first time I can remember doing it. So perhaps that was a little more comprehensive rundown than the question you asked, but since I have to head out now, I just wanted to give you a little more than you asked for. So
No,
There we go.
Appreciate that, man. I think that was excellently put across. I'll let you get away now, mate, because I know you have to go and sort a few things out. But always, thanks very much. I think your input as always was brilliant, but especially that one there, an opening monologue about the way you spoke about the game to me. I think that sums it up perfectly. But I'll let you get away and take care, mate, and we'll just crack on with the show. But see you later, mate. Okay.
Take care,
Cheers,
guys.
Evan.
Take care, Cav. Take care, Jimmy. Take care, chat. Everybody be nice to each other. I know emotions are high, but let's remember to be kind, because we won't always be shit, and then we'll regret being rude to each other. So there we go.
Very well.
All right, boys. Take care.
Take care.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, so I think, Evan put that across excellently, as he always does. But I think it kind of, the fact that he switched the game off as well before it finished, I feel like there's probably a lot of people in that boat just going through the motions, especially after the third goal, which we'll get onto. But with regard to start of the second half, we mentioned the Nunez chance, few moments of, let's say, interplay, few and far between, however, but there were moments. But guys, as I'm saying this, as I'm physically saying this, I'm like, we were in a Champions League final last year, and I'm trying to clutch at straws against Wolverhampton Wanderers when we're 2-0 down at Molineux on a Saturday at 3 o'clock. It's like, there's some things you're going to die on a hill for. This is not going to be one of them. So my point, and Jamie, I know you've spoke for a little while, mate, so I'll get you in here. There was a chance, and I actually thought this was quite a big moment as well. You mentioned the Nunez one. That's a huge moment. We'll kind of speak about what we mentioned earlier. I saw a lot of people saying in chat, let me know how you felt. Did anybody feel confident he was going to score 1-on-1? I know I didn't, and I think I've seen a lot of people say that as well. Did you guys feel the same?
He's been saying in the press recently that he had to work on his finishes. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like Thiago said, Thiago said the other day about how, one of the reasons or excuses for Liverpool this season has been how they came so close and how it's mentally shattering last year being on the cusp of all-time greatness. And then this year, how do you pick up the pieces? And this is the most uncharacteristic that I've ever seen Liverpool in terms of what we're doing in the press, in terms of what our players and our manager. And I know we will probably segue into this later, but we just look like our expressions are that our pants are on the ground and we have absolutely no idea what's going on at any phase of the game. And the one thing, I don't know if you were getting onto this, Conroy, but the thing that I question continuously is, I remember I saw a video of Mane's game against Bayern in the Champions League when we won it, and the tweet was, one of those I'm him performances, and I just remember what stuck out to me was the outside of the boot Trivela pass from Salah to Mane, just the confidence in goal to try that against Bayern Munich, and it comes off in a beautiful goal. And I've just consistently thought this year, regardless of Salah's finishing and his goals, he's just not been as dynamic as a playmaker whatsoever. And our attack looks so stale. And I felt like yesterday's game was a perfect example where he looked shy on the ball. He wasn't taking people on to create space to get the overlap for the right back or the right center midfield. He wasn't ever looking like he'd take a touch, push someone off his body and get going around. And I know we put emphasis on Darwin and we haven't really talked about Gakpo, but in terms of our fluidity up front, there's absolutely nothing. And I feel like, rationally speaking, the person who should be accountable for getting the attack going is probably our best attacking player, which I think is Mo Salah. And recently, it's not come off for him at all. And I don't know why.
Well, see, the thing is, though, I think a few points here, Jamie. The thing that I don't want to, I've told myself I'm not going to repeat things I've said the last couple of weeks and just it's just not copy and paste. But what the hell are they doing in training if there's no fluidity? It's not as if they're working a 9 to 5 and then doing a 2-hour training session at night. They have a full week to work on a plan. So that's obviously not good enough. It isn't rocket science sometimes. You should be able to see something. Even if you're getting battered 5-0, but you're seeing at least a bit of interplay that you're working on. We're seeing nothing. It's not good. It's not good enough. You can have as many excuses as you want, right? And fair play. I think Eunice mentioned that. No, it was that other guy. Sorry, it was good about the keeper closing down. Listen, these are top keepers. They're not going to open the goal for you, and he does do well. But you should hit 2,000 balls a day. Like if you are signed to be that, and I think we've got different opinions on Darwin. I'm still going to give him time, of course, but it's like we wanted to die on the hill with Darwin Núñez, and I just feel that by a couple of years we'll look back and be like, it maybe wasn't the one to die on the hill for. To put this is our major signing, who's going to change the game for us. But I'm not going to get dragged into that now. For me, it's very frustrating because it's like we sometimes talk about we need confidence, like I get that, but literally we're talking about basics of football, and it's like I actually do not have a clue what they're doing in breaks or training, because I've never seen Liverpool have a break, go away to Marbella and come back better. I don't know if you guys have, but right now it looks like it's at all-time low. I do not know what they're doing. Now, they're obviously trying stuff. They're not just messing about. I know people said playing stupid ball games, but whatever they're doing, there is definitely an issue that's either not coming across to the players or they're tactically just not being good enough to do it. But it's one of those things, or it may be another factor, but ultimately it's not working. And we can talk about, we've tried this. Yeah, that's great, but that's the whole point. That's what you have to do. You have to work out different things. Sean Dyche has been in for a week and he's managed to adapt his team to beat Arsenal. If it was this easy, everybody would do it. And it's baffling how it still give the ball to Trent and Trent will find the pass. That is the pattern of play. That is the pattern of play. Or keep the ball in front of a defence, which is very easy, and then they'll just, crosses, they'll head away like meat and drink because they're all, top level centre backs, defenders. Sorry guys, I'm not going to go on a rant. Again, it's just not good enough. Plain and simple, it's just not good enough. And I'm meant to be asking the bloody questions as well, so apologies. Right? But Jamie, the original question was on Salah as well. Sorry, your point. I agree, mate. I just feel like he's just forms fell off a cliff. I mean, let's be honest. Salah's never been one. He had spells where he beat three men wide, and he'd do that at times with Liverpool. He's had moments of that and spells, but I'm not acting like he'd beat three men every week. That's not what he always does. He'd have great goals like Man City goal. He has that in his locker, but his biggest factor was always making those runs in behind. And I think as a unit, we're not offering that as well as quickly to him. Obviously, the high line not being pressing as well, that's a factor as well. And he's also not getting as much chance or opportunity in the final third. There's lots of factors in that. Cav, what's your thoughts on Salah, especially yesterday as well? And fair play to Eunice, he mentioned Salah had a good chance as well that hit over the bar.
Well, Salah had a few good openings, actually. That one that Eunice raises, the ball's played into him. He controls it quite well, but just a lazy shot. And he hits it and it skies over the bar. And Salah of old maybe would have took that down, maybe look to create a better opening through a touch outside the defender, or, maybe come back inside or what have you, or quite simply hit the target. If that's an informed Salah, a firing confident Salah, he at least hits the target. They're the situations that he was so good at before, them exact moments. There's another chance where the ball's played to him inside the 18-yard box. He cuts back in on his left as he does, and he's trying to find that bottom corner. Again, it's not even on target. It's out wide of the post. And it's just like these moments, whilst, yes, he's not getting a lot of chances, these are chances. These are moments. This is where actually, as the highest paid player in the club's history, and the guy that's got all these goals and seemingly has all this quality, you have to take these chances. And I get he's been amazing. I get he's been incredible for us. He'll go down as a legend. But this is about the present and this is about the future. And you have to start taking these chances. It doesn't matter how much credit you've got in the bank. You are a forward. I would say he's our main forward, but always round you, one of three men that's up there, which are our main goal getters. And he's just squandering the chances. And I go back to what I raised earlier about Trent's body language after the goal. I'm not liking his body language after missing these chances. He walks off. I'm not saying he's smiling. Well, sometimes he's smiling. And other times it's just like he walks away like it's not a problem. And as a fan, it's frustrating because we're watching him and going, not only have you missed it, but we're not playing particularly well. And I don't expect you to be getting many more chances. So why are you roaming around like this is all okay? Because
I know. I know. But, footballers do that. Let's be honest. I do think it's more a mentality thing, Cav, because Nunes does it as well. And I've got to be honest, I've seen too many do that now. I think it is more a mentality thing where it's like in their head, they have to try and keep that positive outlook.
It's keep calm, keep positive and carry on. Yeah. But where's that burning desire that Salah of old had where he was just hungry for goals? And if he missed a chance in his head, he would instantly think, I mean, I don't know for sure, but it felt like he thought, oh my God, that's another goal gone. Like, how am I going to get the golden boot? Because I've just missed that chance. I need to take the next one. Whereas at the minute, it's a bit like, yeah, I know I'm probably not going to get golden boot. I know we're probably not going to win the title. It is what it is. What's the difference between finish 9th, 10th, 11th or 6th? Do you know what I mean? That's how it looks. But that's not good enough because that mentality doesn't get you up the table. It doesn't win you games. You have to get annoyed. You have to get fired up. And I use the example of the second half performance. No tactical change, no personnel change, yet the players come out and played so much better. Why? Because the game is gone and it was about their pride. Like, that's not good. That isn't good enough. It shouldn't come to being 2 goals down for you to actually then get fired up and want to go out and win this game. That should be the attitude from the off. You play for Liverpool. You paid pretty handsomely. Like, I know you've got a lot of credit in the bank from what you achieved, but we're fighting for our lives here, like in this league, to get 3 points. And we're not seeing that in their attitude, let alone the output. And when I seen that second half performance, I thought, oh, well, that's all well and good. But all you've done is prove to me that you're actually capable of doing it. All you've actually proved to me is that the 4-3-3 can work if you bloody apply yourselves well. If you actually come out and fight for every ball and press with a bit of energy and want to win a challenge and a second ball and want to, when you get to the box, take someone on and create an opening and get a shot. They did it in the second half up until we conceded. Why can't they do that all the time? Yeah,
but I mean, it is like not to disagree with that, Cav, but a counterpoint to maybe say that, what's the famous saying? If you're 2-0 down, you can always play better because not the pressure's off, if you know what I mean, but it's a bit like Wolves are obviously going to retreat slightly as well. And I get what you're saying, mate. I do. It's the pride thing, but like, to be honest, it's a hard one because it just feels like we're talking about a team, down the bottom. Actually, have got some good players. Don't get me wrong. But it's like, I agree with the frustration, mate. It does feel like, why can't you start like that? But it goes back to Evan's point about giving the momentum to that team. You're already playing uphill. And if we continue to do that, you don't actually know what are we capable of if you're already playing uphill, but just to add on this as well, because I think Mick, who couldn't make it tonight, unfortunately, he wasn't feeling too well. So big up to Mick in the chat. He says, basically on Salah, I think it's a really good point. Trent is 60 yards away rather than 30 now. A bit what we said, pressing higher line. There's no space because he snuffed out too easily as our main attacker. That being said, he's way away from his best. A clinical Salah with ease problems. I find that's the really good way of putting it. And I think I've said this before and people were like, what did you mean? Salah doesn't run a game. And by the way, no one's like Messi, so that's a bad example. But it's not like he's not a KDB who's going to drop deep and dictate plays. He's had spells where he can do things like that, through balls, wide crosses, like he can get lots of assists, do not get me wrong, but he never runs a game. So you're not going to see him drop deep and do that. So he does rely on at least getting the service. But that's, as Mick says, I think that's a good summary. He's by far from his best. But because that used to give him those opportunities in final third, and I just think we're not doing that. So I think for me, it's a balance of both. I don't think he's completely fell off a cliff ability-wise, but I just think that's one of the reasons why you're not seeing him as being as influential. So just on that, guys, as well, we kind of went to the Salah points there. That's you, Jamie, kicking off the Salah. Fair enough.
I'm just taking this conversation everywhere in the wrong place today.
No, it's good, mate. We like different segues. That's what makes it good. And then obviously Mick said what I was trying to say about the present thing, so Mick could bail me out there. But with regard to the last chance I wanted to speak about just before Wolves' goal, just quickly, is Keita's chance. Now, that's massive, right? And again, to me, I was baffled how badly he struck that ball in that situation. So it's good. It is actually decent interplay. 1-2 with Robbo. I think, is it Nunes or Gakpo hits the ball across?
Nunes and Gakpo.
Yeah, does find well. It does find them well. He's inside the box. centre of the box, full goal to aim at. Don't get me wrong, if a defender makes a great block with a clean strike, I can live with that. I think Eunice is saying it gave me Real Madrid final vibes. Couldn't agree more, my friend. Couldn't agree more. It just feels like this guy used to score absolute screamers in the Bundesliga, but sometimes I feel like his strike would struggle to reach the goal now. It's just, that was a massive chance. And actually, to be fair, Robertson's deflection made it more goal-bound than, because I think it hits the hand, not the hand, the kind of knee of the defender down low. And it just like, that again, if that goes in, Cav, momentum, you might be able to grab a draw from that game, but it doesn't inevitably, ultimately. And it was, I saw someone say that about Keita, and it made me laugh. So I just wanted to mention that. Don't get me wrong, he did score. Eunice, he scored the screamer against Atletico, I agree, but I mean, some of his shooting now, I just feel like the lack of power is, I don't know. I do not know. This is a guy who used to score absolutely wonder goals in the Bundesliga, and he has for us as well, but I wouldn't put my mortgage on him. And I think, the Real Madrid one final definitely is edged in our brain, I think, going forward. But I just wanted to make a comment on that one, guys. Last goal, Cav, I'll let you take this one, mate, and then we can speak about the post-match and stuff, was Nunez's goal. Maybe the worst of the lot, in my opinion, but we can talk about that later. Feel free to take this one away, Cav.
Yeah, so it comes, as I say, I think second half we improved our performance. We were
Neves goal, sorry, not Nunez goal. Neves goal.
Neves goal, yeah. We were sort of managing to peg them back slightly. We were sort of recovering the second balls and put a bit of pressure on. Some people will say Wolves sat back. That much is probably true. They knew that they just had to defend the lead they had and was playing on the counter-attack. But I felt like Bisetic in particular was managing to pick up balls and coast by one or a player or two, make a nice pass, keep the tempo going. But it was actually him that got dispossessed in Wolves' half. And then there's a bit of play that slides through Adama Traore, and you could kind of see it happening before the pass was made because Adama's like on the shoulder, and there's acres of space because Liverpool, of course, have pushed up, and it goes between, I think, Gomez and Robbo, and Robbo does a crazy action by trying to play offside, even though he's in front of three men or something like that.
Force a habit, I think that is.
Exactly.
Tony Adams-esque, Yeah.
But it's Adama, he's away, and I must admit, I thought the only way they don't score is the fact that it's Adama, and the guy, as quick and as big and as strong as he is, his end product is very questionable. But he picks his head up and he plays a pretty simple, straight ball into the box, into the running stride of Neves. It goes between Thiago and I'm not sure who the centre back was.
It was Matip. I think it may be Matip.
Well, I think it was Gomez. I think Thiago's running back. Gomez is in his centre back position, and Matip's kind of behind Neves.
I think he's he's in a position where I think he could come across and plug the gap. Yeah.
Exactly. So Thiago kind of checks his shoulder, sees Ruben Neves is running in, doesn't cut off the passing lane, doesn't stick tight to the man, just lets him go.
Thiago jogs.
Yeah.
He jogs.
Yeah. And the ball's played across. He takes a nice touch, but on the touch is where you're like, if Matip's got a Wolves player behind him, but you have to deal with the immediate threat. And the immediate threat is at the centre of the box. It's the man in front of you. And so he should have gone across to try and cover that off. And had he done that and read the game well enough, which is an attribute we actually label as being quite positive of Matip's, he'd have maybe got in front of Neves and just got a challenge in to block that off. But no one does, and that's why it looks dead easy. And he takes a touch and he puts Alisson the wrong way and he tucks it away. And by that point, I mean, if it wasn't done already, 71 minutes in, it definitely was at 3-0. And Neves got to remind everyone that point to the head is actually his celebration. And I thought that was quite amusing. But it basically was just a goal that is like Liverpool finding new ways of letting the opposition score. You've had the silly errors at the back. Now here's a load of space you can run into, and we won't track you, and we'll be lazy, and you can go and finish off the game if you like. So, yeah, disappointing goal. You say every goal is preventable. This one was just about not losing it in crucial areas and making sure you got back. And then once they got into the box, making sure that you're in a position to actually engage with the ball. And we did none of them things. So disappointing yet again.
You know what that goal was, Conroy? It was extremely iridescent of a Jordan Henderson goal from 2012, 2013, 2014, where he embodied Liverpool as a player of, I want it more than you. And Ruben Neves was ready to take the hard yards there because he wanted it in a situation. And when you're leaving the pitch that far open and you just give it to someone to say, if you want it, come take it. I'm not going to say it was the worst goal of the lot, but it's so indicative to me how players on opposition teams can go, I want this more than you against Liverpool. And it's coming off now, week in and week out. And that's why that goal, beyond what Cav said as the nail in the coffin, it was just a summary of the last 5 games or so, honestly.
Maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's a summary of, I'm not going to go into it too much. We spoke about needing midfielders, needed that engine room. And listen, I'm not going to, like, Thiago obviously is not good enough for that goal. But again, it's like we know what we need, and we know what's been successful for our midfield, especially. There's numerous issues, but that's one of them. And we've not got it. And at the end of the day, you've just walked through our midfield like it was not there. And it's no coincidence that Ruben Neves he's not exactly rapid as well. He's not, he's not known for being box to box. He's a very good midfielder, but I wouldn't say he's box to box. But as you said, he wanted more. No. And it's like, it's a very, I agree, Jamie, it's a very symbolic goal for that, I would say, because you know what it looks like? It looks like when it's the 95th minute and you've threw the kitchen sink at a team and there's so much space. But forgive me, guys, I can't remember the time of but there was still time that if you got a goal, you could
20 minutes.
So you could call it back. So as a professional team at that level, you've got to think about, where you are. And that, it felt like it was the 90th. If you were watching that, you didn't see the scoreboard, you'd think that was the 95th minute. And listen, don't get me wrong, you're right about Robbo, he didn't do correct there, but in that situation, you'd probably say you don't want Adama to go down the outside, Cav, because he's rapid. So you're relying on going inside and then the midfield deal with that. But it probably shows you right now that they're just all at 6s and 7s. And it's actually, it was my mate actually texted me as soon as the goal went in. He went, what the F is happening with Liverpool? And he obviously doesn't watch every game. And I just went, basically, mate, this is not a surprise. And that probably sums up things right now. It's not a surprise. It's not like Watford away when we're unbeaten and we got battered 3-0, because that was out of nowhere. This is norm at the moment, to be honest, guys, unfortunately. And hopefully it gets better. But that goal, 3-0, game over. And the rest of the game, it was just playing through the motions, to be honest. It's very strange when, I think we've been lucky as of late, last couple of years, don't get me wrong, success. I've had the Britannia 6-1s, I've had that. But it was like, you're just kind of, Ox comes on as maybe Ox going to score, and Nearly scores, to be fair. But by that time, your head's kind of out with the game. I don't know if you guys agree. You're just, anything, a consolation. No one really remembers consolation goals anyway, but you just kind of to see maybe it happens and then the game finishes and that's it. And I think, is there anything else you guys want to touch on actually within the game? Or I think we've covered everything with that. Anything you want to touch on there?
I don't think it's necessarily worth raising the point on the subs, because they were just kind of for the sake of it, weren't they, really? Builder comes on, Henderson comes on. I think, is the other one Jones? I have to check this one. But they're not brought on to make an impact in the game. They're just simply brought on. It's
not going to affect the game, is it? I wouldn't judge someone's substitutions at that time, to be honest. It's probably just to give someone a rest and maybe get some minutes into some.
What I would say, I felt like Elliot, when he came on, actually did make a bit of an impact. I felt like he actually was getting on the ball, and he didn't make clear-cut chances, but things looked a lot more positive when he was actually on the ball. And there's been some shouts for him to start over a certain right winger that's not performing at the moment, and that's only going to feed into that agenda that people may have, because he's not. he's been a little bit inconsistent, but he's had more better games than not, Elliot. And I felt like for being 3-0 down and coming on and still managing to have that desire to go and get a goal, even though really you're out the game, I think says a lot about him. And he should take credit, much like Bisetic, as a young man in this team, for seizing the minutes and the opportunities that they are getting despite everything that's going on. So look, it's I'm just trying to look for positive things we can take away from it, and I thought that was one.
Do you know what, on that though, Cav? I've actually said this before. I think because we watch every game, I think, to be honest, I've said this, I think Harvey in midfield's not been great as of late when he's playing, but I think last time he was at Molineux, he got man of the match, scored a great goal, looked very good out wide in the sense of, interlinking play. I thought it was good, made things happen, creativity was very good. So I agree, Cav. I actually don't think I think he's been quite positive when he's played out wide. If you either want to make that a 4-4-2 right midfield or a right wing, again, I think he can play there. It's not all about pace, especially if you're inverted playing that way. It's about how you link with the front line. And again, I would give him opportunity there. As someone said, maybe play more through the middle. Can maybe try 4-4-2 or a few kind of variations of that. I agree. I actually think, you know what, Harvey's actually done okay down there. And again, he got man of the match at Molineux, and he was the reason we got through to the next round. I thought he was pivotal in that game. So
I think in a season where attitude has come into question in a lot of games, it seems a bit crazy to me that you don't start the guys that seemingly have a really good one. Like Elliot, for me, has been one of the guys that when he steps out on the pitch, he's left it all out there. He's tried his best, and that can filter through the team. When all the other teammates or all the other guys are standing around watching him run after every ball and try and make things happen and be excited about being in the game, that kind of filters through to the rest of the guys that they're like, well, we need to match that level. We need to match that and, that intensity, the word we don't like anymore, and the energy. And if everybody did, dare I say it, we would be much further up the table if all our players could match the level, the intensity and the application that someone like Harvey Elliott's showing. I mean, that's an upsetting thing to say because we have such senior experienced figures in our squad that shouldn't really be questionable, but it is.
Yeah, I think for me, Cav, I think him playing out wide, I actually think he deserves opportunity to play there. But again, we'll go into that more for previews come up for other games. But I think that is a good point. Yo, what's good? Thanks for the $5 super chat. Not very much, mate. But yeah, we've not had many what's good moments, to be honest, apart from your name always, in the chat. And thanks again for all your support. But what he says is starting to think Klopp doesn't make subs based on how the game is going, makes the subs at the same minute every game, 60th minute, Keita the most. I think especially the Keita one's probably because he's maybe fitness determining that. But let's just take that as a whole. Jamie, what do you what's your thoughts towards that? Let's maybe say the Keita one's more fitness, but in general, do you think he has subs primed for a certain moment every game, not based on how the game's going?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, our game plan has been the exact same for the last 15 games. It seems like come on and try and rescue something from 1-0, 2-0 down. No, but all jokes aside, right? With the squad being so thin right now, and I've noticed this for a long, long time with Jurgen Klopp. I think at maybe about 18, 19, 19, 20, there was a structural shift in his substitutions where most of his substitutions, if not all of his substitutions, are down to managing minutes, because I feel like in circumstances with the midfield particularly, that there will be substitutions that are made specifically for the fact that we know that player who's coming off, for example, let's say a Thiago or maybe a Fabinho in years prior, is going to have to play the next 2 or 3 games straight in a Champions League and a Premier League span of 5 days or something like that. And now when the injuries have accumulated the way they have in the last 3 years, you always have to be planning for how can I keep the best available squad always, where I'm sure there are some games that it's never a situation of could we win it with this sub as opposed to should I play it safe and be pragmatic. But in the long term, the thinking must be if the squad is as fit as possible, we will accumulate the most points. And that in-game situations can sometimes suffer for the thought of I have to keep my best players fit.
Yeah, I think you covered that one very well, mate. I think I agree with you there. Yeah, unfortunately, it just adds to it, but yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, I think that answers that very well, and thanks again for the super chat. But I was actually thinking, as you said that, Jamie, there, it's just like, again, this time last year, League Cup final, Newcastle, Manchester United is coming up. We were in that, went to penalties, me and Evan were talking about, he was called Carabao Cup Evan, because he didn't like the domestic cups as much as the Champions League, Premier League. And now, yeah, how quickly it can change. And we seem to do it, quicker than anyone else, to be perfectly honest. But maybe that's its own show to cover that. But we move on, guys. Just a few more agenda items. Just discuss the game finishes. And then, yeah, Cav, you mentioned body language all day. You mentioned Trent. I've got to be honest. I think Trent, to me, if you're the main playmaker and you're seeing, the lack of finish in front of you, but also the lack of creativity from other people, or just in general, I think it's frustrating for him. And I think coming off the other day, I think annoyed him as well. I kind of agree, because I actually thought he was probably didn't deserve to come off, but then maybe he did. It's a hard one. Matoma did have the beating of him, but at the same time, he probably thought that if you're going to get back in a game or going to win the game, he's important. So maybe move him to a 4-4-2 and move him higher up the park, maybe something like that, and keep Milner right back. I get that, but I don't want to go too far with that. My point being, though, is at the end of the game, you seen Klopp following it. I think nothing much. It was the standard following and handshakes and stuff. But then you saw at the post-match conference, actually, not the interview. And you can use the interview comments as well, but I think it's apparent to everyone that he refused to speak to James Pearce in the press conference. So, Cav, I just actually wanted to get, and I'll get Jamie's thoughts on this after, but what was your thoughts on that? And overall, just the current body language and Klopp's reaction at the moment. Where's your head at with that?
Look, as fans, we're not happy with the situation right now, and neither are the players, neither is the manager, of course. They're in it with us. But usually Klopp comes out and one of his I say it's a deflection tactic, but maybe it's just the way he goes about his business. But in these post-match interviews and conferences, he typically tries to describe the game as though we've not just watched it, So when he's asked the question, he really just goes through the moments in the game and tries to describe what happened, as opposed to addressing the question or the points he's been asked. It's a very good deflection in some respects, but he has these coping mechanisms where he's done plenty of games now. He's had losses. He kind of knows how to work his way through. But I felt like this one was particularly interesting because he did snap at the interviewer, and I'm not sure what it was over. I'm not sure what this reporter wrote. I'm not sure if anybody in the chat does. I had a brief look today to try and find out what it was.
I've seen a few, Cav. I'll let you go on, mate. I've seen a few say it was about something in the past. I've seen a few say it was in maybe relation to the Melissa Reddy stuff. But I know in the chat I've said that as well. I've seen someone also say it was to do with the Athletic recently as well. So maybe a few things, mate. But sorry, let yourself go on.
Yeah, but I think, look, always round, he did snap slightly, and it goes to show that he's listening or reading what's being put out outside of the media. Do you know what I mean? Usually it's, we want to look for in-house solutions. I'll concentrate on me doing better and helping the team. But now he's reacted to something that's outside that bubble. And clearly, I think what that shows is that he's kind of feeling the pressure, as we can obviously guess, is that he's feeling the pressure of this situation. We're not dropping points by draws, and, that's questioning our title challenge. No, these are losses, and we're sitting 10th. I mean, this is This isn't good. And it just looks like the noise outside of the camp is kind of getting to him slightly. That was my takeaway from it. And I don't think that's a positive thing. I don't think that is, because as we've seen from like the COVID season and times where we've had bad results or bad form and things like that, Klopp can quite often sort of, I feel, start to lose his head a little bit and start to make some crazy decisions and start to not lose focus, but, you know, not perhaps put all the focus on what he really should be, which is getting this, you know, team training, team tactics, selection, and these things. And I just think it's a bit of a pile-on at the minute with Jurgen Klopp. And look, whether you Klopp in or you Klopp out, I think he's going to be here for the rest of the season. So if we're going to get anything out of it, I feel like we just need to, unfortunately, grind our teeth a little bit and get through it and just support him as best we can. If he feels like he can't do it anymore, I'm sure he will walk away. But I just thought it was interesting that he snapped in that press conference. Because as I say, I think it's a sign of him feeling the heat, and he needs to pull himself through. He needs to get himself out of it. He probably felt like he was getting somewhere with some positive defensive performances in the past few games, and then that Wolves result, conceding 3, just really set us back quite a way. So yeah, interesting. I'd like to see what comes out in the coming days, see if we can know for sure what he's referring to with the reporter. But it must have been something interesting to get his back up quite so like that.
Yeah, Jamie, what's just straight into it? What's your thoughts on that? Do you agree with Cav on that?
No, I definitely agree with Cav on everything he said there. The only thing I would say is, ironically, I'm happy to see him show emotion, because if we're complaining that the team's not showing emotion, even if what Klopp has done is wrong, because from the clip that I've seen, James Pearce asks a question, and then Klopp basically says, I dismiss you. I will not answer your question. But if someone else rephrases the exact question that he said, I'll answer it. And you never like to see people necessarily get rude or act that way. But at the same time, you have to have some sort of reaction, and you have to have some sort of emotion to display to the world that you are not content with what's going on. Because I'll tell you one thing, his team looked very, very content with the way that things happened in that game and with many other games throughout this season. And I think we've sort of started to see, with Fabinho not appearing, Henderson not starting, this idea of whether Klopp is loyal or not loyal to certain players. I think sometimes to achieve results that you've never achieved, and what I'm talking about specifically right now is going from being a successful team that's had players who've aged to then going again and being successful. Klopp hasn't necessarily done that in his career. He's going to have to do different things in this second phase of his Liverpool career. And if he has to go have a row with a reporter, I'm very, very certain he's going back and having a row with the players as well, which I think is absolutely needed, because if he doesn't have emotion, accountability, and frustration for what's going on, you know, we're deader in the water than we thought.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, guys. I do. I think, you know, that comment about it having at least you're seeing the human side, and I do. I mean, I think Cav's got a point as well. Klopp's done this in the past, and he sometimes doesn't like. It's always seems to be like it's not always the go-to one you'd assume, because he's done it in the past where he's brought up certain things. Like I remember this probably was it Des Kelly? Was it with the BT
Yes,
one?
it was Des Kelly, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, that probably was like, but again, it wasn't like, it was about the 12:30 kickoff. So sometimes it's like, it's not really like, it's maybe an issue, but it's not a huge thing. But because other things are happening and it's a pressure cooker, it gets brought up. So yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Like I've said this, well, I don't know if I said it before, but Klopp in general, like even when we're playing great, right? I've never thought he's like you don't want anyone to be a good loser, but he is like quite a sore loser as well. But like he doesn't always act you can see he's a sore loser in a lot of games, even when we've been playing well. Like, and he's said some things in the past, and I'm like scratching my head, like, come on. But that's just me being honest with it. So this, again, I don't think this is massively new, but it does show the human side, especially that it's building on him. But what I would say is, that point about the players looking like they're content and he's not content. I do think that you're seeing that, and it's making you feel that he feels the pain of the fans, you know, and I agree with that. Hopefully more comes out. I know a few in the chat have said that it was maybe not to do with the Melissa, and some of Melissa read the article. Some have said it was. Some have said it's to do with something happened in the past. I don't know why you'd suddenly bring it up now if it was, because I'm sure James Pearce has been to lots of press conferences following games, so I don't know why you'd suddenly just pluck that out there at the moment. But again, is it maybe deflection? Klopp's nowhere near as good as Mourinho of deflection. I'm not going to have that. That's not a comparison. Mourinho was next levels of deflection. Next levels. Jose Mourinho spent a full post-match going over the minutes where there was refereeing decisions and didn't talk about how poor his team were in that game because the full media went to that. That's next level. Like, I'd say Mourinho was probably the GOAT at deflection.
Conrad, the best one was when Manchester United had lost 3-0, and he was like, "Do you know what 3-0 means? 3 premierships for me and 0 for the rest." It's like, what?
Honestly.
Is that what we're waiting for now? A Klopp rant? Are we a couple of losses away from a full Klopp rant?
No, probably not. What I'm saying is, I'm just saying, like, Mourinho would like take it to a next level in the sense of, I think a moment of like a character and a humanity by Klopp is just a moment, you know. Whereas like this would be a consistent thing with Mourinho, and you saw it, and you look back, and it is entertaining. But if that's your manager, it can be quite, you know, there's pros and cons. But I just wanted to add that snippet because I think, like, I was watching something the other day. Mourinho had like some of the stuff he would do to take the pressure off his team in those moments was just like unbelievable. The one when it's like, I think Man United are losing at Chelsea, and he goes like this, and he does the 3 Premier League titles to the Chelsea fans as he's losing, as Chelsea are winning the game, and he's at Man United. It's just like next level mind games, you know. But it's just thought I'd add that in. But yeah, guys, what did you think of the comment to the actual interview? I think when he said, I've not got them written down, but he said the first 15 minutes is basically what we spoke about. It's just, I don't know what that was. And I'll just as baffled as us. You got anything to add on that, guys?
I think he said it on the touchline. I remember, I'm not sure what goal it was after. I think it must have been the second bit. The camera panned to the bench, and he's turned around, and I think he's speaking to Millie, who was behind him, and I think you could read his lips, and he's just saying unbelievable. And I do feel for him slightly because we've spoke so much today about the goals and how they're individual errors, and if they happen so early on in a game that you've got such a mountain to climb to get back into the game. And whilst people are like, yeah, Klopp out, needs to change formation, change tactics, the players have got to be accountable for themselves. They have to be. Do you know what I mean? And at this point in time, I just think what's gonna shake them, what's gonna be the catalyst to getting these guys back firing and motivated. And for me personally, I don't want it to have to be a new manager to get that bounce. I just want them to find another way of doing it, but it's hard to see at this moment in time. And I think it's very easy, and it's dead right that the manager, the book does stop at him, and it's fair criticism. He should be doing more. He should be doing better. But there's Champions League and Premier League winning players out there. You know, I know we've got injuries, but come on, they've got to be doing better. They've got to be. They're not new to this. They know the system. They know the tactics. They know what's being asked of them. Their backs are well and truly up against the wall now. They need to be accountable for what's going on as well. So I do feel for Klopp slightly when he comes, and I agree with him when he comes out and says, you can't, what you meant to do when you're inside 15 minutes, 2 goals down. As a manager, you've got to pull out something incredible. Imagine Klopp with the substitutes on the bench that he had, being 2 goals down inside 15 minutes due to individual errors, thinking, what can I do to change the game? What is there? What is there that you can do? What, bring Henderson on?
No, I agree. I think you're right. I think the thing that came out after the game that kind of frustrated me a little bit is the Fabinho one. It looks like it was an illness, as far as I'm aware. I don't know if you guys know anything different. So even this kind of, we're going to drop him out the squad, well, that didn't happen. So that type of, oh, we're going to make this change. Well, that's not really happening. If that's the case, that's just circumstantial. That's not any, we're making a drastic change here, bombing out the squad. So I don't even know if there's credit from that, to be honest, because that looks like it's circumstantial. So we'll see going forward. I agree, mate. You can't do much with that in this circumstance. But again, Klopp's not opposed to criticism. He's made a lot of tactical. Him and the coaching staff this season, they've got it wrong quite a lot. But again, I think it goes back to Evan's point. You give yourself a mountain to climb, and then you don't finish the chances you get to try and get that momentum back in your side, and then you don't track runners because your midfield just is basically all over the place by that point. But we're going to go into that too much. But yeah, I agree, mate. Guys, last couple of questions, and this is actually Cav's point, and so I'm going to let Cav, actually I'll let Jamie, because I spoke to him, right, for a few minutes there. Jamie, we've not seen you for a couple of weeks, right? And I actually don't think we've even asked this question in a couple of weeks, but Cav put it in the chat, so we're going to ask it now. Jamie, you're the very, very positive Liverpool fan. You know, very, very good at analysing the game. You know, watch a lot of football. You're in coaching yourself. Can Liverpool make the top four? Or is that completely gone now?
Can they do it, or will they do
it? Well, we'll see. Will they do? We'll not do possibilities. Yeah.
They will not. Could they do it in theory? Yes, but all of the things that we talk about in terms of basic errors and positional organizational things, and just actually looking like a football team that wants to win something or do well, that Liverpool is not living here right now in 2023. And I think the Michael Jordan series, The Last Dance, I think our last dance was last year with the body of the squad that won the Champions League and the Premier League in 19 and 20. And now I think it's on to next year. Realistically, I think the best case scenario for us would be get minutes in the legs of the young kids and finish 11th or 10th, and then go buy players in the market who would love to come to Liverpool, regardless of if they have Champions League or not, who fit Klopp's ideology and philosophy, and go again. I really think it's unfortunate, but I think that that's our best outlook right now at this point.
Gav, what do you think? I agree, Jamie, by the way, just so you know. But Gav, what do you think?
I think that the only chance Liverpool have is that Jota and Diaz, Virgil, Konate come back and they stay fit for the rest of the season. I think Diaz is a while off, but I think Jota coming back into the squad is going to make a significant difference. But I actually don't think it's so much about what we do. I think it's about the others. Newcastle have been very strong this season, but draws could kill them. They've racked up quite a few. Spurs.
It's not even that. Brighton are winning last-minute games. They look confident as anything as well. Now there's other teams who look just better in general.
I agree. But we're saying that Brighton have been exceptional this season. One of the best teams to watch. Look, so fluid, great attacks. True, they only sit 5 points ahead of us, and we've been absolutely abysmal. So, if things start balancing out,
But Chelsea are above us, and Chelsea have been absolutely abysmal.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is Brentford, Fulham, Brighton, they're having brilliant seasons, but they only sit 5 points ahead of us, roughly, okay? So if Liverpool can, improve slightly, ever so slightly, then we can maybe get ahead of these teams. The trouble is going to be that I think Arsenal, Man City, and United are guaranteed. It's just then dependent on how well Newcastle can do. They look like they're, like I say, getting the draws. They've been defensively strong all season, but maybe that's going to start falling away a little bit now. Spurs. Bear in mind,
Bruno was out though. He was out.
Very true. Yeah.
Today, and he'll maybe miss the next 2 games. So I think he's important for them. So I'd agree with that. But the one thing I would say is it's in this season, it's probably okay to get some draws if you're going for the top 4. Because I feel like no one's, barring maybe Arsenal and potentially Man City, no one's going to go on a standard. They're not on the Liverpool Man City standard a couple of years ago. Yeah. I think I get what you're saying. I just think especially a Howe team who ironically used to be susceptible defensively. He's really straightened it out when he went away after Bournemouth and stuff. It's like those points might be actually look okay in the future, because I don't think Spurs are going to go on this mad run either. So I get what you're saying, Cav. It's possible.
I just think the past few seasons, the top 4 races felt like nobody wanted it towards the end. There was never a team that, like, top 2 was Liverpool, Man City. 3rd place was whichever team. A 4th was always like the final spot, which a few teams were in and around it. And it felt like no one really grabbed it and got, win after win after win and secured it. It was a lot of inconsistency around these teams. And by default, whichever team got it. And I just feel like it could be the same this season. And it's only probably going to look, we've got 18 games left. We could have 8 games of pure inconsistency and then get some players back and suddenly find form with the 10 remaining, because maybe we're out the Champions League and we just have a sole focus, which is getting top 4. And we managed to pull together a result of 7-8 wins out of the 10. And that might just get it you. So the point I'm trying to make is there's a chance. But based on what we've seen and how Liverpool have played, I think it's unlikely.
Do you know what? You're right, Cav. It is a fair point. Sorry, in the sense of when we did go on a run with the team we had in the COVID season with Reece Williams and that. I'd have, if there's changes like that to a team, if there's maybe, I'm not saying put they 2 in it, but if there's actually not a clear out, but no, this is the midfield we're playing and we're going to be more structured, which we've done in that season as we kind of played to our strengths. But we've had a lot of time to do that, and I've not seen that. I'm still seeing us clutch at straws for positive moments again, Wolves and Brighton, which we have to do, but I'm not seeing that. And we did have the 6-game losing streak in that season, so don't get me wrong, maybe it's going to take a little bit longer for us to get there. So you may be right, mate. The thing I feel, though, is I just feel that season especially, it took an Alisson, go in the last minute against West Brom. It took Chelsea to completely collapse. Took Leicester, not completely collapse. They finished 4th, but Leicester collapsed in that season as well. Last 2 lost. They got a lot of injuries and lost the last couple of games as well, or a lot dropped points. I feel like that can always happen, but I just, from our point of view, I just can't. At the moment, I can't see us going on that run, because I feel like we've knew the problem for a while, but I'm not seeing any game plan that's been very successful, to be perfectly honest. And the ones that have, we've went back to the norm with the 4-3-3 instead of sticking with them. So I feel like we don't know what's the best thing to go forward right now. The best foot to put forward. I don't know if that's a correct phrase, but the best way to go at these games. So therefore, I still think we're finding our feet, and you can't do that. You've not got, by the time we maybe actually get to grips with what we need to do, it might be too late. But listen, you never know. If you're ever going to have a chance to get back in it, it may be because certain teams are not used to being in that position, i.e. Newcastle, i.e. Brighton being close to those spots. So they may waver. But we'll see. We'll see. I think that's a fair point, Cav, to be honest. I agree with Jamie, but you know what? You've represented that quite well. On the other thing as well, what was I going to say? What going forward, Cav, I'll stick with you. What do you think we need to do to aim to get top 4 if we can? What would you do right now? Would you change? Would you wait on players coming back and keep the way you're playing, so when they come back like Jota and stuff, they can just slot in? Or would you make further changes to what we're seeing tactically? Because we're obviously not going to sign any players.
Yeah, so this is a stick or twist scenario. If you're sticking, you're basically staying with 4-3-3. You're playing pretty much the team you played at the weekend, and you're just waiting on Virgil to come back in the side, Khanage to come back into it, and Jota. I think Virgil and Jota are in first team training, full training next week. I think. I'm not sure if that's individual or team training, but it sounds like they're not too far away. And look, I know Virgil's not been great this season, but I take sort of an out of form Virgil over any of these centre backs, and I take a Jota. I know he's got to be managed, but I take Jota into this above any of the forward 3 at this moment in time, and he'll be massive. There were signs that when he come back from the first injury as well, he played a few games. I felt his link-up play was a lot better. Weren't just the guy that was good in the box and getting goals. He was actually managing to find his other forwards and brought other people into the game really well. So if we can get that out of him as well, it suddenly changes the whole dynamic of your attack. Just one player can have that impact and then help us get results. So do you stick and wait on these guys, or do you twist and do you change the formation? For me personally, I'd love to see the 5 at the back. I think the players we have available to us at the minute, I know, putting an extra centre back in there seems a bit mental with the injuries to the centre backs, but I feel like our team is tailor made with the wing backs being our creative outlets and getting the pace and the goal threats more centrally at the top end of the pitch. Knowing he's not going to do that though, I'd at least like to see an extra body in attack. I would like this to go to a 4-2-3-1. Maybe stick a Carvalho in the 10, give him a bit of a license to roam. Maybe Elliot can play that position, or maybe even Curtis Jones. And
just on that, Cav, before you say the rest, just on the point about the back three, Liverpool's 12th man, I'd saved this super chat. He'd actually said, a hot take is I think Fabinho should platoon in the back line and find his form by having the entire pitch in front of him instead of the midfield duties. You wanted to ask our thoughts, but Cav, I'll ask you, because you mentioned the back five. You mentioned the lack of centre backs, or maybe we've not got enough to use that formation. Could you maybe see Fabinho going back, introduced as maybe the centre in the back three, or of one of them around the other two? Would that be something you could maybe see being successful, playing back into form?
Yeah, possibly, because when we've criticised Fabinho, it's been the fact that he's looked a yard off quite a few yards off the pace. The game happens around him, and he can't quite get to the areas he needs to be to make a challenge and break up play. Once somebody turns him, it's basically curtains, isn't it? He hasn't got the recovery energy or pace to get back and engage with the game again. So if the game's happening in front of him, maybe that might suit him a bit better, because being slow and not having the energy doesn't necessarily matter. It depends how high we go with the high line, but doesn't necessarily matter. It's more about reading the game and just making them short runs, a few yards to close something off or engage in a challenge and stuff. I know it was a rash challenge the other week, but actually Fabinho, when he's close enough to his man, he can put a good challenge in or break up the play. So possibly it might be a solution there for both parties, both us and Fabinho, if he moves to that centre-back position. I would be concerned with his pace as a centre-back, but you can maybe cater for that with having Gomez in there or Virgil when he's back and stuff, providing a bit more pace up there. I also think if you go to a back five, you're kind of conceding that you can't play a high line as well. I don't see how that works. So possibly. 4-2-3-1,
Cav. Thanks for that. So 4-2-3-1, you were saying.
Yeah, that's what I would like to see, knowing that we're not going to go to a back five. And I just want that number 10 at this point in time to be Elliot or Carvalho, because they're available to us. But when Jota comes back, maybe he can be the fourth man. If Firmino comes back, he can be that fourth man in attack. And just give him a license to drift around and try and link the midfield to the attack. I think it's something that we've been missing a whole lot for quite a while, is somebody that can just pick up the ball and actually receive it off the midfield and sort of the halfway line kind of areas, centre circle, and link it into the forwards. It always feels like the forwards are making runs in behind and what have you. And the only man that really picks them out is Trent. And it has to be a fantastic pass to try and find them, as we've seen. I would like somebody with a bit of license to roam in them areas between the forward line and midfield.
Like a Carvalho, possibly, Cav?
Yeah, and Carvalho has shown... Look, he's young, and I think physically sometimes he gets bullied off the ball and stuff, so he's not going to be the ideal sort of player for now. But what he does have is a nice touch, low centre of gravity, balance, picks his head up, his awareness is quite good. Not a fantastic passer, but good vision to be able to link, a pass, keeps the tempo going. And we've seen he has this kind of... I don't want to say knacks, maybe knacks going too far, but with the Man City goal, you see he just finds himself in that 18-yard box in areas
where, runner, yeah, he's quite good at that.
Yeah, he can just no one's kind of picking him up, maybe because they're concentrating on other obvious threats from Liverpool, but just want him to just kind of arrive in the box late or just be in there ready for a bobble down or whatever, just to add that extra body in the box to try and help us score some goals. We've seen from his time at Fulham, he can run beyond the forward, but I'm not too sure if he'll be able to do that with Núñez. But it would be nice if he could, because once he gets beyond the forward and is one-on-one with the keeper, he's shown from his time at Fulham that he's very composed and he can finish. So I would like to see it. But if he gives it to Elliot based on merit, yeah, brilliant. And like I say, when the two main guys come back, Firmino and Jota, I think that position would suit them quite nicely. So that man, it has to be said, would have to do a lot defensively as well, because you take an extra body out that midfield and make them more attacking. You don't want to be overrunning midfield, because we've already had that a lot this season. So there's a lot of work for that guy to do. But be it at this point in time, you've got Carvalho, Elliott, Jones, and then Firmino and Jota to come back. Tell them to go out there, leave it all on the pitch for 60 minutes, bring the next man on. And if they do, and then if you need to rotate for the following week, or you've got bodies in that position to do so. So that's what I would like to see. But yeah, who knows?
No, listen, I think that's I think that's I would agree with a lot of those points, Kall. I think that's actually quite a good one. As I say, we'll see what happens, but it may be an answer with Elliott, or I think Jota's actually, his link-up's a wee bit underrated. He has moments, I understand, because he tries some passes that aren't always on, but he's always looking for that one that can basically turn a team round and get a transition, be that facilitator. So even if it was maybe not as a Maddison number 10, when he plays in the middle, takes it long range, looking for the balls over top, a facilitator like Jota can maybe roam in there as well. I agree. Or even like Elliott, give him a bit more free roll. Jamie, what do you think? What would you suggest going forward? Can he stick or twist, try something different? Or I say, as Cav mentioned, the 4-2-3-1, what would you consider?
Look, if we're talking about the rest of the season, I would say play a system in which you see the most players who will be returning for Liverpool next year, to find where they will be successful. Because I think a lot of players that are in the squad right now potentially might not be there. And so that's the long answer. The short answer for me is whatever you do in training and in the next 2 Premier League games, I hope it's something that can be replicated for success against Real Madrid. I have not much confidence that we'll go through in this tie. Just, I know that Real Madrid's not really been on great form, but in terms of the short term, use things for these next 2 weeks to your advantage that you hope would come off against Madrid, because in terms of the ROI, return on investment for this season, the shortest amount of games to playing Champions League next year is through the Champions League at this point right now. So if you've got one final push in something, in some aspect, put everything into tactics for this Real Madrid tie. That's where I would go.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, no, fair enough, Jamie. I think that's a very good point as well. But listen, guys, I appreciate all your thoughts, and Evan as well. It's been a really enjoyable show as always, and your input's been fantastic. Thanks to the chat as always, superb. Just the last one before I forget, last super chat. Ollie put his super chat in, can't handle the thought of life without Champions League. I'd agree with that, mate, but I've got to be honest, we'll have previews on the Real Madrid game, but yeah, I think we're going to need a miracle at this moment in time. Need a miracle to get through that one. But yeah, guys, thanks very much for the show. Thanks very much for the chat, and on to the next one. I'm sure Grizz will have plenty of shows this week organised, and plenty of previews coming up. But yeah, it's been a eventful weekend again, another therapy session. But yeah, reminder as well, futcard.com, just put in the discount code, it's RedFellas, and get 15% off if you want your banners, flags. It's great. Sponsor the channel. Great website, so head on over there. But yeah, anyway, guys, anything from you, or all good?
All good.
All
Till
good.
next
all right.
time.
Take care, folks. All right. See you soon. Cheers.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
guys.